So let us try to have this one. There is a picture here, no, in the center, a person having, it seems like an octopus, no? If you try to look at na yung mga countries na nakapaligid na nag-control sa IAHA, na nasa tunga is England. So if you try to look at this one, these are colonies, no, mga sakop na mga bansa ng England noong mga sinaunang panahon, like Egypt, India, Canada, Jamaica, and the rest. So they are controlling, no? So there is another picture here, the world map, and the two hands shaking and indicating the internationalization and the United Nations. So this United Nations is one of the indications of the global interstate system. So when it's the interstate, with interaction with the different states or different country. So most of the countries or states, now, if you hear the word states, it does not only rely or does not only mean the United States of America. States here referring to countries. Most of the countries or states are independent. Actually, they have their independence, no, meaning they can create their own policy. They can have their own foreign policy. They can govern their own country, like the Philippines in the picture, headed by the head of the state, President Duterte. No, he has a statement. He had a statement to when it comes to foreign policy. Our foreign policy must be independent always. No, we should not anchor our policy, our foreign policy, to other country. So we will be also talking about right now the current state of Ukraine and Russia, no? Okay, because these are all things to be discussed in global interstate. No? There's an interaction between these countries through diplomacy. So let's say diplomacy, diplomatic, peaceful, and formal, professional na talks or discussion between countries. For example, if we have an agreement with China, Philippines and China, and we have a political and economic agreement, that is what we call diplomacy. Our country also make an agreement with other countries, not only China, not only United Kingdom, not only United States. So we need to interact, no, with other countries. As I said in our previous discussion, our country would not develop if we will not interact with other countries. No one is an island. Therefore, every country should interact and should have a relationship to each countries. Like this one, we need also to involve ourselves into different international organizations. It was discussed that the United Nations was created after the World War II. No, before the before the United Nations, it was so before the United Nations was created, it's an organization of all countries in the world, which was created after the World War II. No? After ng ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig, ay nabuo ang isang samahan ng mga bansa, United Nations. Okay. So, if you try to look at this one, no, there are some instances na nagkakaroon ng hindi pagkakaunawaan ang dalawang bansa. Nation, maliit na bansa, state, malaking bansa. No? Halimbawa, no, ang napakita dito ay dalawang boxer, no? Ukraine versus Russia. We all know the reason. No? I hope that you know the reason why these two countries are now in conflict. The main reason is of Ukraine was a former territory of Russia, and it was before it was called Union Soviet of Socialist Republic, or USSR. Until 1992 or 1991, this Ukraine separated from Russia and other country or state that belongs to USSR. And Ukraine wanted to be part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This North Atlantic Treaty Organization, countries composed of different Western countries, different European countries, and it is organized by United States. If we try to recall the history of Russia and America, there was a battle between the two because of economic conflict. Like Russia, they are using the communism economic na communism approach, while ang United States, they are using the capitalist approach. So that's the main reason why there is a Cold War. No, it's not because the Cold War because their country are cold. It's a Cold War. It's a political and economic conflict. Russia is a communist country, and America is United States is a capitalist country. Okay. Okay. A state. What does a state or a nation? How does state and nation differ? So we have here picture of Barack Obama, previous president of United States. State refers to a country and its government. There are 4 elements of the states, no? Para matawag nato og isa ka estado ang isang bansa, kailangan niya ang 4 na elemento. Kailangan niya ang mga tao, people or citizen. Kailangan niya ng territory, pamahalaan, government, and sovereignty. When is the sovereignty? It's the independence, the freedom to implement their policies and laws within their country. Meaning to say, there is no one who controls their country. So our country, Philippines, is a state because we have people or citizens, we have our own territory, we have our government, and we have the sovereignty. No one controls us and no one have the control of our country. Ibig sabihin, ito ay isang malayang bansa. Kapag ito ay na-control ng ibang bansa, ang bansang to ay hindi tatawagin na state. It's only a nation. So ang nation, 3 lang ang elements niya, no? Again, mayroon siyang citizen, territory at government. That's nation. But if it is a state, there must be 4 elements: citizen, territory, government, and sovereignty. So, tingnan natin ang nation. The main privilege and concern of citizens are rights and responsibility. Limit themselves on the particular culture. So, example of nation is Puerto Rico. No? Puerto Rico is under the control of United States. They have their own nation, they have their own country, they have their own people, they have their own government, they have their own territory, but they don't have sovereignty because Puerto Rico is still a part of protectorate of United States. Ibig sabihin, sa Puerto Rico, ang bansa na ito ay under pa rin sa United States. Ang kanilang pangulo ay ang pangulo pa rin ng United States. So ang mga Puerto Ricans are also called Americans. If you are familiar with the famous boxer, Puerto Rican boxer De La Hoya, no? De La Hoya is a Puerto Rican, the same time American, because Puerto Rico is still in control of United States. So they are still a nation. They are not a state because ang kulang sa kanila ay sovereignty. Ano nga ibig sabihin ng sovereignty? Kalayaan, no? Independence. That's sovereignty. So again, para mas mabigyan natin ng mukha ang pagkakaiba ng bansa, ng nation at state, ang state ay may 4 na elemento: citizen, territory, government, and sovereignty. This is the most important one, the sovereignty, no? External, internal sovereignty. Internal, meaning to say, may karapatan na magpatupad ng mga batas sa loob ng bansa. External, may karapatan na mamahala at walang nagkukontrol na ibang bansa. No? Yan ay external sovereignty. So that's nation and state. Look at this one. This is an example of a nation and a state. An example of Korea. Korea has 2 Koreas right now, the North and the South Korea. And do not be confused you might be confused of England, United Kingdom, and other than that, we also have kaning UK, England, wala siya, no? Or Great Britain. So, mo na composition niya. Like here in the Philippines, no? This BARM, no? Or Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, no? One ng mga example nga na gusto nila og autonomy. So nation states, nationalism facilitates the information of a state. In the contemporary modern era, the creation of nation states are largely caused by the nationalist movements, like this one. No? They wanted that this Muslim Mindanao, now they wanted to claim their what we call the ancestral domain. Meaning to say, prior to becoming a Philippines, this autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao is already established. So gusto nilang humiwalay sa Pilipinas at bumuo ng bagong bansa. So balit hindi ito na isa katuparan, ngunit sila pa rin ay bahagi ng Pilipinas, ngunit sila ay binigyan ng otonomiya. When I say autonomy, a little freedom. No? They have their own laws, but they are still under the national government of the Philippines because there are laws that will operate only for the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. But still, they are still part of the Philippines. They were not able to claim an independence and their own country, but they can still promulgate their own laws, mga Muslim laws at Sharia, mga ilahan na dito. States become independent and sovereign. Sovereignty is the fundamental principles of modern state and politics. So, how a state became sovereign? So, ibig sabihin, kailan natin masasabi na isang estado ay malaya at may kalayaan? Let's proceed the history of interstate system. A set of agreements signed in 1648 to end the 30 years war between major continental powers in Europe after a brutal religious war between Catholics and Protestants. So, nagsimula ang treaty na pagkakasundo ng mga bansa. Dati pa sa kasaysayan ay hindi nagkakaunawa ng bansa dahil nga sa religious war. Ang mga Katoliko at ang mga kumukontra sa Katoliko na tinatawag natin mga Protestante o Protestants. This agreement, that's 30 years war, and because of this treaty, designed by the Holy Roman Empire, Spain, France, Sweden, and Dutch Republic, that treaty is called the Treaty of Westphalia. So, ito ay nilahukan ng iba't ibang bansa. So, dito nagsimula ang global interstate. Ibig sabihin, nagkakasundo ang mga bansa na iwasan at tigilan na ang digmaan. So, nagsimula ito sa Treaty of Westphalia. Hanggang sa kasalukuyan, we have a treaty, an organization called the United Nations. Okay, the Treaty of Westphalia and Napoleon Bonaparte. So, sa kasaysayan ito, also known as Napoleon I, a French military leader and emperor who controlled much of Europe in early 19th century, spread the principle of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, and fraternity, challenged the power of kings, nobility, and religion in Europe. Because during this time, the most powerful institution is the church. Again, I repeat, in the 18th to 19th century, ang pinakamakapangyarihang institusyon ay ang simbahan. No? So, implemented the Napoleonic Code that forbade with privilege, encouraged freedom, religion, established meritocracy, and the government service. It shocked the European monarchies and hereditary elite. The Battle of Waterloo in 1815, Anglo-Prussian. Prussia means these are Germany. The former name of Germany is Prussia. Armies defeated Napoleon. So, dito dahil natalo na si Napoleon ay nagkaroon ng mga alyansa. So, dito kabilang na din ito sa pinagsimulan ng tinatawag nating global interstate system. So, alliance between United Kingdom, Austria, Prussia, and Russia aim to prevent another one. So, bakit nagkakaroon ng global interstate before system? Ang pangunahing dahilan ay upang mapigilan ang mga digmaan. Ngayon, nagkakaroon ng global interstate system para magkaroon ng mabuting ugnayan ng mga bansa sa pagdating sa pakikipag, kalakalan, or trading. Okay. So let's have the global interstate system today. That was before. So anong dahilan bakit nagkaroon ng global state system before, the global interstate system before? That is because they wanted to stop the war, no? The conflict of different countries. That was also happened during the end of the Second World War. Nagkaroon ng United Nations. So, nabuo ang United Nations dahil ito sa pagtatapos ng World War II na gusto din natin na maiwasan muli, no? Ito maaring marahil ang dahilan kung bakit kailangan natin makipag-alyansa, makipag-ugnayan sa ibang bansa. Ito na nga yung pangyayari sa bansang Russia at bansang Ukraine na maaring udlot ng no, dapat lang maiwasan natin ang isa pang pandaigdigang digmaan. So today in the global interstate system, there is what we call internationalism. It is the desire for greater cooperation and unity among states and people. So dapat ang naging dahilan kung bakit meron tayong global interstate system ngayon ay upang magkaroon ng kooperasyon at pagkakaunawaan, pagkakaisa ng mga bansa at ang mga namamahala ng mga bansang ito. It has two forms, the liberal internationalism and the socialist internationalism. So let's compare the two. Let's start with liberal internationalism. According to Immanuel Kant, one of the political analysts and at the same time an economic proponent, the first major liberal internationalist thinker. So siya ang pinakaunang liberal internationalist thinker na isang philosopher sa bansang Germany. Imagine for a world government that would govern the interstate relation and the system in general. According to Jeremy Bentham, he also coined, siyang nagbigay ng salitang World International Post of Creation of International Laws. International laws will govern the interstate relations. So, ibig sabihin, may mga pandaigdigang batas na sinusunod tayo. Isa na nga dito ay ang United Nations. Di ba? Inaakasahan si Pangulong Duterte na lumabag sa mga karapatang pantao. Kaya pumasok dito sa ating bansa ang issue at ang United Nations, particular na ang international crime na maaari daw makasuhan ang ating Pangulo dahil kabahagi tayo sa international organization ng United Nations na kung saan meron tayong sinusunod na international laws. So these are the two individuals who started the liberal internationalism. So what if the world government became supreme and it lost overwhelmed the state sovereignty? So ano kaya mangyayari kung ang pamahalaan ng buong bansa, the world government, ay maging mas makapangyarihan pa sa bansa na katulad ng Pilipinas? Halimbawa, si Pangulong Duterte ang namumuno sa ating bansa at meron siya at tinasuhan siya ng International Court of Criminal Justice. So ibig bang sabihin dapat sumunod si Pangulong Duterte sa International Court for Justice like that? Kaya nga sinasabi ni Pangulong Duterte na hindi siya pwede daw pakialaman dahil walang karapatan ang International Court na pakialaman ang bansang soberanya katulad ng Philippines. Dahil mayroon tayong karapatan, mayroon tayong sariling judicial system. So according to Giuseppe Mazzini, the 19th century Italian patriot, was the first to reconcile nationalism with liberal internationalism. He believed in a republican government and proposed a system of free nations with cooperation to create international system. An equally free, independent states becomes a basis of equality, free, cooperative, and international system. Mazzini influenced the thinking of US President Woodrow Wilson. So he is Woodrow Wilson, no? He's one of the 20th century's most prominent internationalists. Principle of determination, a belief that world's nation had a right to a free, sovereign government and hope them to become democracies. So ibig sabihin, gusto daw ng mga taong ito, ng mga proponent na ito, na maging malaya ang mga bansa, maging independente. No, na hindi dapat pwedeng pakialaman ng anumang mga international organization or other independent country. So kaya sa foreign policy ng ating Pangulo, gusto niya magiging independent ang ating foreign policy. Hindi dapat tayo pinapakialaman ng ibang bansa when it comes to our policy. So, here comes the League of Nations in 1919. So, ito yung unang asosasyon ng mga bansa bago ang United Nations. So, League of Nations of 1919. An international democratic group that became an avenue for the conciliation and arbitration to prevent another war after World War I. So, after World War I ay nabuo ang League of Nations. Part of the 14-point speech of US President Woodrow Wilson ay dito pinahatid sa League of Nations. US failed to join because of the strong opposition from its Senate. So, hindi nakasali. Sila ang unang lumikha ng League of Nations pero hindi ito naging bahagi ng League of Nations dahil nga may malakas na oposisyon sa Senado. So the League failed to prevent another wars and the World War II led by Axis powers and Allied powers. So created some of the more task-specific international organization. Ang League of Nations ay nabuo ang World Health Organization and International Labor Organization. It was the concretization of the concepts of liberal internationalism and creation of common international principles. According to Mazzini, preservation of the principles of cooperation and respect among nation states. So dapat daw ay igalang ang mga bansa, igalang ang kanyang karapatan at ang kanyang independence. So let's have the other part, the Socialist Internationalism. So sa kabilang banda, kanina si Immanuel Kant, dito naman sa kabila sa Socialist Internationalism, si Karl Marx, isang German socialist philosopher, the biggest critics of Mazzini. So sila yung mga kumukontra sa liberalization. Gusto kasi ng mga Socialist Internationalism na mas kontrolado ng gobyerno ang lahat ng mga activity nito. Now, according to Karl Marx, they believe that any true form of internationalism should deliberately reject nationalism. Nationalism rooted people in domestic concerns rather than global ones. So gusto nila Karl Marx sa social internationalism na dapat bigyang pansin at tugon ang bansa bago pakialaman ang iba pang mga bansa. Bago makilahok sa ibang mga asosasyon sa ibang bansa, sa buong mundo, ay unahin muna ang mga problema ng sariling bansa. That's domestic concern. Okay, divided the world into classes. So according to Karl Marx, dapat daw meron tayong tinatawag na social classes. The bourgeoisie, sila yung mga kapitalista. Ito yung nasa kabila, no? Ibig sabihin, the capitalist. At ang mga working class, ay yung mga trabahante, manggagawa, ay tinatawag na proletariat. Okay. So ito yung dalawa sa Socialist Internationalism. Si Karl Marx at si Friedrich Engels. Was a short-lived union, Socialist International, so SI. It was a short-lived union, European Socialist and Labor parties established in Paris in 1889. So Labor Day in May 1, that is why we celebrate always every first day of May, the Labor Day. We have another organization, the Communist International. Anong niabot ang Russia diri isgutanan because Russia is a communist country. They wanted to control government, the activity of every individual in the government. So a more radical version, the Union Soviet of Socialist Republic or the USSR, led by Bolshevik Party, headed by Vladimir Lenin. Si Lenin, no? Dito yung nagsimula yung current president nila na si Vladimir Putin, no? The Bolshevik did not believe in election to obtain power for working class. Use revolution's method of terror if necessary. The Communist International in 1919 a central body to direct communist parties all over the world and it was less democratic. So, pag communist ka, kontrolado ka ng gobyerno. Dito lahat ng mga gawain, mga manggagawa, businesses, ay kontrolado ng gobyerno. Sa demokrasya, ang kapangyarihan ng isang bansa ay nagmumula sa tao. Kabaligtaran nito sa komunista, no? Dahil kontrolado ng gobyerno ang lahat ng tao. So I think that's all for the discussion of the international global interstate system. So we are already, the time is 4:23. Before we end, we are only 11 here. So please write in the chat box your lessons that you have learned from today's discussion before you left. Again, as a final attendance, write all your learnings from today's discussion, at least 2 to 3 sentences. For those who are here right now, there are only 10 students remaining. So please write in the chat box here your lessons that you have learned from today's discussion. And if you are done, you can left the meeting. That's our final attendance. So I will be reading your answer. That is your attendance for today. So if you are done writing, you can now left the meeting, and that will be your final attendance for today's session. So I would like to thank everyone who are still with me right now. Thank you so much, and keep safe, everyone. God bless.